Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M1M, as you know, is the first global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue, build $1 trillion of global GDP and 10 million jobs. And in support of that mission, we do these free mentoring sessions every week almost. This is the 302nd 1M1M free mentoring roundtable, and we use this format of mentoring extensively in our premium program as well. So we do many more of these roundtables behind the closed doors as well. So the format works. You know, we've been using it for many years now. The format works, and we've had the privilege of working with many entrepreneurs in many different parts of the world in this format. You'll have the recording available later on. And if you're live tweeting the show today, please use hashtag 1M1M. And you can follow us on Twitter at 1M by 1M or at Stromana. We publish a lot of interesting content through that channel. The recordings of this session as well as prior sessions are all at our YouTube channel, that is 1M1M Roundtables. And again, a great body of learning material, really. These discussions are very insightful, very interesting, and it's all free. So these are the call-in instructions. I will put these up later when we are ready for calling in. Right now, we're not quite ready yet. We're going to start today with a conversation with David Blumberg, whom I met, I can't even remember, it must have been 15 years back, David. He's the founder and managing partner of Bloomberg Capital and has been in the venture capital business in the Valley for a long time. So we're going to have a chat with him. David, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor, and I'm humbled because I love your mantra, 1 million by 1 million. It's fantastic. We need more Romanas.
It's a very difficult project, I can tell you that. So I want to start with your read of how the venture capital industry that we've been swimming in for so many years, how has it evolved in Silicon Valley over the last 6 years in particular, this decade?
Sure. If I may, I'm a history buff, so I'd like to take us back a little bit longer to the dawn of the millennium, from 2000 on. And the reason I do that is I think that historical context is extremely important for the entrepreneur, especially a young entrepreneur who hasn't been through multiple cycles like we have. So the first thing I would say is that the 2000s dawned with an incredible bubble in technology. There was the dot-com boom, and we had probably too much money chasing a hype cycle, overinflated expectations, incomplete and naive business models, where people were chasing what they called eyeballs. They were trying to get lots of users because the theory in those days was just get big fast. And if you were the leader in numbers of users, somehow you would magically find a way to monetize and then attain a dominant share and establish a sustainable advantage. That was not true. It turned out that one actually needed to deliver real value and start to monetize so that you don't run out of money along the way of the growth path as an entrepreneur. The tech crash caused a lot of dashed expectations, but it brought in much better realism to the entrepreneurial community, an understanding that yes, growth and profitability are necessary, and understanding, I think, on the funding community that a great team is just as important for managing as great technology or a great idea. And that execution is often the dividing line between success and failure. So with those bases, then let's also talk about what's happened in the entrepreneurial, in the technological realm since 2000. Enormously good news for entrepreneurs like you're talking to, and we're talking to today. The great news is that platforms and infrastructure have developed immensely to the benefit of consumers, to the benefit of young entrepreneurs, to the benefit of the people. The 1%, 99% divide is being rectified not necessarily by governments, in my opinion. It's being rectified by technology and entrepreneurs doing basic things every day, like building the internet, building social media platforms, developing mobile phone technology, Internet of Things technology. All of this is benefiting average people that you probably know and I know that live in very destitute circumstances that are now able to connect to things like Wikipedia, which didn't exist 15 years ago. Mobile phones are about 10 years old in terms of smartphones, so all this is new. It really has made the life of me, a venture capitalist who invests in early stage entrepreneurs, easier because it makes the life of my entrepreneurs easier. They can now start companies with much smaller amounts of capital. The cloud infrastructure makes it possible for them to start a company without owning what we used to call a PBX for telephone central switching, or a mainframe computer, or a database. All of that is now available in the cloud. And I don't mean to be patronizing, a lot of your audience knows this already, but just from 15 years ago, 2000, 2001, till today, all of that changed to the benefit of the future world. Now, in the last few years, if it's okay to continue, there has been a bit of again, another hype and a deflation. And we can talk about that more later. I think you have some questions on it. But I think that the main point is that, again, opportunities for entrepreneurs are still very strong. Look at the development of the developing countries. With just mobile phones and social networks, we can now have reach two ways. It's not just anymore a colonial export model. It's a two-way street. We can buy and sell data. We can buy and sell software. We can develop things in rural India and sell them to Silicon Valley and vice versa. We have companies in our portfolio that are 8 years old and they sell in 200 countries. That's astonishing to me. I'll pause there and let you ask some more questions. Yeah.
Well, I think you mentioned that in the early part of the dot-com bubble, the basic discipline of business, that growth is important, but so is profitability and so is unit economics. That discipline, somehow or the other, in the early part of this decade, again went away. Or in the last few years, it went away. It's starting to correct itself again. But what happens in the minds of venture capitalists that this, what seems like basic arithmetic suddenly disappears?
Yes, okay, forgive me, I didn't follow the last few years. So if we touch on the last few years in particular, we like to oversimplify by saying that venture capitalists have only two kind of glands. We have a greed gland and we have a fear gland, and we oscillate between the two. And so we get into these cycles where greed overtakes. I would say that was 99, 2000, and again probably in 2007, and then again probably in 2013, 14, into part of 2015. By part of 2015, it started switching to fear. We have stock market nervousness, we have geopolitical threats around the world, very strange macroeconomic environment, unprecedented weird low rates for extended periods of time. So investment was driven down, a lot of strange behavior in the big markets, which had its percolating effects down into our markets. Now, one difference that I like to say is that the sport of an investment banker or someone who follows the public markets is like surfing. They're worried about waves and weather and sharks up on the surface, whereas an early stage VC and of course an entrepreneur starting a company should be more like a scuba diver, worried about long-term currents and don't hit the reef, big, slower, longer moving trends. So I try not to worry about the edgy, latest, trendy Wall Street happenings. I worry more about what's the big new platform trend, what's happening in the networks of the future. How do algorithms affect traditional industries that may be disrupted? Those are the kind of things that I think people need to be looking for. And there again, the news is good for entrepreneurs. Just because you have a big established brand, thousands of branch offices, does not mean you're going to control that industry for the future decade. We've seen so many examples of disruption.
Let's talk about those key trends where you see good news for the entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Well, a few of them are, I would say that there are a few big areas that are dramatically helpful for young entrepreneurs. I think, for example, things like the Internet of Things offers enormous opportunities because we take huge swaths of traditional industries that have been not touched very much by the internet economy, by the mobile economy, and we move both of those things together, connecting lots and lots of devices for increased efficiency that will need new algorithms, it will need new managerial dashboards, it will need new supply chains, new cybersecurity improvements. A lot of opportunity here because things that were once unconnected become connected. So that's one area. Another, we don't invest a lot yet in this area, but we think that the area of synthetic biology is highly interesting, and new types of manufacturing, 3D printing, etc. Very exciting. Our focus is mostly information technology, but even in information technology, a few things that specifically help young, new entrepreneurs. Agile development. This is a breakthrough. The fact that we can do product cycles much faster, do short sprints of software development, means that we can test with the market very quickly through A/B tests and put things out in a minimal viable product. That was not really possible 15 years ago. Remember that 15 years ago the model was sell big software to the CIO, the Chief Investment Officer, or Chief Information Officer. And they were generally like, we call them Dr. No. They were always saying no, and they didn't want to take a risk on a startup. Now it's flipped. Today they cannot not take a risk on a startup. They have to engage with startups. I just came back from Japan 2 weeks ago, and I met with the biggest companies, all the names you know. All of them said, we need innovation. We need Silicon Valley, we need Tel Aviv, we need Bangalore. We need innovation from entrepreneurs, especially in software, in these new fields, to bring life and dynamism to our existing brands, our existing factories, our existing networks. That, to me, is a sign of real progress, and I think it's not just in Japan, it's everywhere. We get delegations from all over the world saying, we're a giant company, we're global, we have a huge brand, we need to engage with startups, and we're willing to take more risk, we're willing to give more support, etc.
So what is your investment thesis, given the backdrop that we have discussed? As a venture capitalist, what kinds of things are you excited about, and what kind of things are you looking to invest in right now?
Sure. Again, because of the history buff, if I can go 300 years of economic history in 1 minute, I'll do it fast. In the 19th century, the great game changers, the huge opportunities were created by moving from animal and human power to machine power, mainly through the steam engine. So steamships and railroads and mining equipment and agriculture were transformed. In the 20th century, agriculture became extremely efficient compared to all prior human history by the use of tractors and combines and fertilizers and so on. Now, in the 21st century, we believe that the huge improvement will come in the area of the services economy and in the information economy. And you might think those are different, but they're really tied together. Services and information tend to drive much of the world's GDP today, even in the developing countries. But more than half of the GDP in the world today comes from information services businesses. More than half of the world's people today live in urban settings. So the world is moving more and more in this direction. So the opportunity exists to make these large industries, such as financial services, logistics, entertainment, insurance, more and more efficient. Many of them operate by human underwriting in financial services, for example. And a lot of that can be done now better through algorithms, and we can distribute better than through branches in the center of a city, instead of that on mobile phones to people in rural villages or wherever they are in the workplace. So a lot of these businesses will dematerialize and become more in the cloud and service-oriented. Take one more example, automobiles. I was at a conference speaking in Mexico recently, and it was about transportation of the future. And I'm not an expert in that, but I have some theories. And so the first lady from Ford Motor got up and she said, the future of transportation is green, recyclable, sustainable. And then a man from Delphi Auto Parts got up and he said, the future of the automobile is connected, Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth. And I got up and I said, I don't know what the future of the automobile is, but I want to ask you, the audience. There were 1,000 people in Mexico in the audience. And I said, okay, choices A and B. Is it a product that you buy, you own, you fill with gas, you change the oil, when it crashes you take it to the garage to fix, you park it, etc., and it only comes in one shape and size during the lifetime of your ownership? Or, answer B, is it a service? It comes to you when you call it, it comes as a motorcycle one day, a limousine the next day, a Ferrari, whatever you want to impress your date, and it's flexible, and you never fill the gas, you don't pay the insurance, it's all wrapped in a service. So A or B. 900 of those 1,000 people voted for the service. Yeah. And I see it with my nephews who are well-to-do engineers in Silicon Valley. And you know Silicon Valley, typically people need a car. He doesn't want a car. They don't want cars. They want Uber, they want Lyft, they want car sharing, they want alternative transportation systems that are more delivered as a service that's flexible. So what I'm saying is a lot of opportunity, but some of the changes are gargantuan. They're going to completely turn industries on their side. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I think the transportation industry is probably at risk of being disrupted more than any others because the chain effect is so large, right? There is, the behavior change of people not buying cars means that auto manufacturing goes bust or shrinks dramatically. Then the auto insurance busts or shrinks dramatically. The auto service busts, shrinks dramatically. The drivers, I mean, this is like 100 million jobs kind of impact.
Hold on, but you're talking about it in negative. Let me reframe through history. In 1776, when the United States became an independent republic from Britain, 95% of Americans worked in agriculture. Today, 2% of Americans work in agriculture, and yet we produce 20 times more food. It's more healthy, it's more GDP, we export to the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our farmers are incredibly productive. Now, in the transportation industry, I would say we're very inefficient. One car driving me from my home to my office and sitting in the garage when I'm working and when I'm at home is extremely inefficient.
I don't have any disagreement with you on any of that. Yes. I think the larger trend, however, is that, probably 80%, 60 to 80% of all jobs in the industry in the next 50 to 100 years are going to go away. And that is a very disruptive change. I've written extensively about this. I don't want this conversation to be about that. I'm more interested in this conversation. I'm actually more interested in what does this do and what opportunities does it open up for the entrepreneur and correspondingly for people like you who are going to invest in these entrepreneurs. So so if you look at this grand scheme of things, clearly artificial intelligence is a driving trend and vertical cloud is a driving trend, or vertical AI is a driving trend in each of these segments that we talked about, we touched upon. There are immense opportunities for automation and thinking machines as we see them gradually morphing into. So absolutely, that's one of the areas where entrepreneurs are going to create innovation and create growth. And the large companies are also not sitting and twiddling their thumbs. IBM's big bet is Watson. So absolutely, that's one key trend. Is there anything else that you're tracking? And everything we've discussed actually kind of falls in this general area, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and that clubs big data, that clubs IoT, that clubs vertical cloud, all of that into one. Is there any other major area that you're tracking where you see a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs and building large companies, sizable companies, not just building little companies?
Yes. Well, let me give you one example where we've had incredible exits recently, and that's the area of cybersecurity. And it's actually, size is not on your side. In other words, the startup community has more of the new knowledge that's important, more of the value, more of the IP that's really sought after than the largest company. And we see this over and over. Our last acquisition was a company called Cyvera. This company was only 20 months old when it was sold for $200 million to Palo Alto Networks. They had almost no sales. They had a tiny staff, but they had incredible IP for endpoint security protection in a new form that protected against what are called advanced persistent threats, and particularly zero-day threats. So this is an area where the large companies find that the product cycles are moving too fast for them to keep up. They need entrepreneurs desperately, but the entrepreneurs find it easier to develop in a startup environment than inside the fold of the large organization. So typically what we see is startup creative teams form, develop to a certain stage, and then yes, they do sell off, and they don't always go public themselves, but they sell to a big market leader who has huge sales force and customer support and all that. But then guess what? Those entrepreneurs are not going off and retiring and living on an island in Tahiti and drinking margaritas. They go back and they start another company. And we see it over and over, this serial entrepreneur habit. So I think what's exciting, when I was a junior high school, I heard a very powerful futurist, and he talked about the fact that my parents had one job for their whole life, and how we would have many jobs in our lives. And it's so exciting because you can keep reinventing yourself and learning from the past experience, and not every startup is going to be a success. So my message to your young entrepreneurs is try things. And you're not going to succeed all the time. That's okay. Keep learning, be perseverant, keep trying, and you will succeed, further along. Maybe it's going to come early in your life, like Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe it comes later in your life. That's all right. Just keep trying. And the journey is as great as the end result.
So one of the observations I have, and I actually was reading this last week's Economist expose on superstars. And being a history buff, you may have already read this. You would appreciate the cycle that they're talking about. Is that for every time there's a major technological revolution, there's been this very disruptive period of 20, 30 years when there's a tremendous amount of startup activity and experimentation and innovation, and then that period then settles into kind of an oligopoly. And right now we do have a bit of an oligopoly in tech, right? We have 4 or 5 companies that are kind of in very dominant incumbent positions that are very difficult to compete with. I mean, the amount of data that Facebook has accumulated and the amount of precision with which they're able to target ads is impossible to compete with. The only other people who have even a remote chance is Google because of their search and intent data capture. But if you look at the media industry, one after another, they're all going out of business. Just recently, I don't know if you follow this company, Mode Media. It had started life as being called Glam Media and had raised a lot of money. It was a unicorn company, multi-billion-dollar valuation. And I knew the CEO very well. It's an experienced CEO, serial entrepreneur. But didn't work because the market has changed. This company has been around almost 10 years. And today, I don't think a media company without that level of personalization somehow is going to make it. So there's a whole business model that is basically no longer viable for startups. Here, in 1 million by 1 million, any entrepreneur that comes to me and says, oh, I'm going to monetize with ads, I immediately tell them, no, you're not. This is not going to work because that is a dead end. So, so we are at a cycle in information technology entrepreneurship where some significantly lucrative business models are going away. And the scenario that you describe of large companies not able to keep up with their R&D and looking to the startup hinterland, especially in Silicon Valley, to do the R&D that they then acquire and access, that is one model of startups. But how many exits happen in 1 year in the industry? That limits, because the startup activity right now is very high, right? And I think it was 2013 or 14, I don't remember which year it was, but 70,000 companies got angel funded. That's a lot of companies. And I think it has actually gone down lately, but still worldwide there's a tremendous number of startups constantly coming up, and there's just not going to be enough exits for all these companies, one. The other trend is the growth rates of these startups. But if you actually look at, if you don't get early exits, then you're going to have to build this company, you have to grow this company at a very fast pace to fit the venture capital model of continuous financing and growing to sizable scale so that the company can have a public market exit. That path is becoming harder for a lot of companies because of the incumbent's role being so extensive. So this is kind of like my observations. I'd like to hear what you are observing of all these pieces. How does this come together in your mind, putting the venture capitalist hat on?
Sure. Okay, I have 3 different points. Let me start with your last point first. 1, the Chamber of Commerce of the United States reported, I think it was last year or early this year, that traditionally in America, for the last 20, 30 years, we had about 400,000 new companies started of all types, some venture-backed, but only a minority of them, and we'd have 400,000 started and 300,000 died. We were a growing economy of startups. Since 2009, it's flipped, and we've had 400,000 continue to be created, but 470,000 die every year. That is a bad sign. Now, it's partly due to the recession that hopefully is now ending, but it's not just that. I think we are killing the goose that lays the golden egg of entrepreneurship with over-regulation. I see it particularly in California, where people are moving to Texas and Nevada and other places that are less regulated with lower taxes and so on. I see it in the general movement of population from the northeastern industrial states to the more free market southern states, the sunshine states supposedly, and we see it moving across to other countries that have lighter regulatory burdens. When we started to see France legislate 35-hour work week, we saw people start to move out of France. You make London the 6th largest French city. Things like this. So government regulation favors the big company. It's not a friend of the startup. So that's one point. Second point is I want to take a little bit of exception to your point about, I don't disagree about this punctuated equilibrium theory where you said the economist was saying a lot of tumult for 20 or 30 years, disruption, and then stasis of big oligopolies. There may be some truth to that, but I would remind us all of, think about Nokia's dominant position just, a decade ago. Everyone thought that Nokia was the king of mobile telephony going forward, and they were going to expand into media, and they were going to expand into content creation, and a whole bunch of allied fields, and today they're gone, basically. They're there, but it's a figment of its last self. MySpace, before Facebook. Think of the dominant position of the Yellow Pages before Google. Yahoo was before Google. Remember, the big search engine before Google. All these things that were disrupting.
This is not, what you're describing is not contrary to the point they're making. I think the point they're making is that we've gone through a 30-year extensive and rich innovation phase and startup activity phase. It is, however, the company that really disrupted Nokia is Apple. And to some extent, the Google Samsung world has, but that followed. It was Apple that really disrupted Nokia. And what is that? So anyway, but now I think sitting in 2016 and looking ahead, it seems like there is a bit more of a, too many superstars dominating and kind of playing monopolistic roles in their individual areas. Like Facebook doesn't really have a competitor right now. Google doesn't really have a competitor in search. And these are dominant industries. At least on the cell phone side, on the smartphone side, there's competition. It's an oligopoly, but there's still at least some competition. These two are monopolies. on the business software side, there's a lot more competition. There's Salesforce.com, there's Microsoft, there's Oracle, there's SAP, and they're all still trying to do things and acquire companies and stay relevant, and there is a lot of startup activity that has built up companies to some scale. They're actually on clouds and big data and so forth. There are solid 50, 75, 100, $200 million companies, and some even larger like ServiceNow, Viva. These are sizable SaaS companies that have come up. So that side has better dynamics, I think, much more healthy dynamics. But these, like the media industry that I talked about earlier, this is completely finished at some level because of Facebook's domination. And how does that scenario change?
I hear you, and I agree to a large extent, and it concerns me. And so we tend to invest much more in the B2B, the industrial, the algorithmic, the AI-driven things, because we find it easier to sell to businesses. Our firm has a very successful CIO council, Chief Information Officer Council, and includes Chief Marketing Officers and Chief Security Officers. And we get these folks in a room, men and women, New York and San Francisco and other places around the world, 4 times a year. And they tell us what they're looking for, and we show them new things that they've never seen. And they're excited to see startups. They want, again, they're big companies today. The good news, again, for entrepreneurs is large companies are now wanting your help. They are soliciting innovation, and they know they can't do it themselves. They need to buy from you, they need to partner with you to distribute, or they need to acquire your whole company. All three are, or invest in you. All 3 or 4 are good options, which were not really easily done, say, even 15 years ago. That's one. Let's take a different industry, because I agree with you to a large extent in media, but a couple things. One, in terms of advertising, my sense is the millennial generation doesn't trust advertising much at all. And that whole market of advertising is going to have to change very significantly. We have a very interesting company called Yotpo in our portfolio, which is flipping advertising on its head because it uses customer reviews that are validated by social media profiles to show that this is a real customer who actually bought this product and actually has X, Y, and Z opinion about it. And I think people don't trust religion, they don't trust government, they don't trust businesses, but they trust their friends. And so when you see a friend telling you about the new tennis racket they bought and showing you, and I got a great serve with this, and so on and so forth, you have much more incentive to go out and actually try it. So I think some of it is going to flip around, maybe to the benefit of Facebook, but maybe to some new other entrants. I don't know. But let's go to a totally different field. Let's go to the area of food. All right, this is more approachable. Many of your million entrepreneurs are not going to be in high tech, and certainly not in Silicon Valley. But if you want to create a new kind of food brand, look at the proliferation from when Sharmina, you and I were children. There was Coke, and there was Pepsi, and there was milk. I mean, there were, I don't know, kind of 3 kinds of drinks. And now if you go to the average service station for gasoline, you walk in and there's like 500 kinds of drinks to choose from. All kinds of strange ones, fermented yogurt and different things, and mango and blah, 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 blah. So all these were started by entrepreneurs. Very rarely were these new brands created by the Pepsi and the Coke. Pepsi and Coke buy these brands, that's fine, okay, but the entrepreneur has made money along the way. But it's because the consumer is getting tired of a monopoly offering. And I think, like that, consumers are going to get tired of Facebook. I do.
Well, this actually is an area, what you're talking about, of differentiated, well-merchandised consumer products, new consumer products in existing categories or sometimes even new categories. This is a very interesting area because Facebook has actually created an unbelievable platform for entrepreneurs to hyper-target. And that hyper-targeting capability never existed until now.
Exactly.
It's amazing. For $20, the kind of hyper-targeting you can do, maybe you're reaching, for $20, you're reaching 5,000 people, but they're the 5,000 right people, and it's incredibly efficient. So there's some good news for the consumer entrepreneurs who are trying to build something. I think there's a good news, bad news in the story that you told, in that Amazon has locked up distribution and logistics in such a tight way that all the big categories are kind of locked up. However, the niche, the new, the new merchandising, the new products, new brands that's where I think the e-commerce opportunity or the new branded consumer opportunity is.
Yes.
I know that's not where you invest, but.
No. You've invested, you just mentioned something where we did invest. We invested in the infrastructure for food manufacturers in a company called Case Stack. And they started in LA. Very interestingly, they moved to Bentonville, Arkansas. And guess why? Because they wanted to be by Walmart. And now they build consolidation programs for logistics, for Walmart, for Kroger, for, I think they're starting to work with Amazon. Certainly they do with H-E-B and who are some of the other big ones, Whole Foods, for example. And they help small entrepreneurs, say under $2 billion in revenue, that's small these days, and they help them be much more efficient in their logistics of what we call LTL, less than truckload, making it full truckload. And I won't bore you with the details, but essentially what they're moving to is a software solution that puts the entire supply chain for logistics management in the cloud. And it makes it end-to-end. I can sit in my office where I make hot chili pepper sauce in Waco, Texas, and I sell it all over the world, and I don't have to know anything about shipping and logistics and warehousing. All of it happens seamlessly, and I meet the extremely difficult demands of huge customers like Walmart or Amazon for their fulfillment. So that's, again, helping the entrepreneur. What I love is seeing companies that start to level the playing field. And let me give you another example from fintech, financial services, where, again, people think, oh, it's all rigged in the benefit of the Goldman Sachs and their big wealthy clients. We just invested in a company called Earn Up here in San Francisco. Two entrepreneurs who bootstrapped themselves into an MRR of tens of thousands of dollars before they even came to us. So they are helping average people who are in debt with a mortgage, a student loan, a car loan, a personal loan, to pay these things off in an automated fashion, so that it optimizes the minimum interest payments and the maximum financial health for the consumer, for the borrower. We never miss a payment. We pay down extra principal whenever we have extra money available in our bank account. And this is a SaaS model, low-cost service, extremely easy to use, and it helps these average people, you, me, average Joe, do better in the credit markets, build their credit score, never waste money with a missed payment, and always make sure that the bank credits the principal early payment instead of saying that, oh, this is just future interest. So this all benefits the consumer. And we're seeing, again, many companies like this to start to help average people level the playing field. Technology can benefit the elite and the big companies, but it can also help benefit the average person in ways that their great-grandparents would never have imagined possible.
Well, and I think the opportunity of selling B2B SaaS to small, medium enterprises is a massive one still. If the customer acquisition is a bit more complicated, but it's become a lot easier because of these targeting capabilities and hyper-targeting capabilities. Has become a lot easier even to acquire customers in that space, and that continues to be a very sizable opportunity still. That's not very heavily penetrated yet.
Totally agree with you. And another example from fintech of a problem and then how we solve it. We often say that it's harder to find a good problem than a good solution. So you got to look for the problem. Right? Now, we have an entrepreneur who came into us with a company called Lendio. His name is Brock, he's from Utah, and he came into us, and after he finished his presentation, I said to him, Brock, we've been waiting for you. We knew that a company like this needed to be built. Thank goodness you came to us first, and we could invest in you. So what does this company do? It's called Lendio, L-E-N-D-I-O. And they are a one-stop shop for borrowing for entrepreneurs, SMBs, small, medium-sized businesses. Now, say you wanted to get an equipment loan, or you wanted to get a mortgage if you're building a factory, or you wanted to get a general line of credit, or you wanted to factor some of your clothing sales. All those are different kinds of loans. They require you to go to different institutions, different account managers, different forms, different data. Forget that. Lendio takes one application with everything you need, and they then put a bid out to relevant lenders so that they compete for your business. It's a great model, growing really fast, and then they have on the other side of the marketplace people like OnDeck and Prosper and Sunbox, which is another one of our investments, that are bidding for your business as an entrepreneur. And here's the real problem. This is not talked about by politicians, but it's a real crisis for small business. In the United States, since the 2008 crash, and I think it's similar around the world in many countries, the lending to small businesses has decreased. Cash flow has really tightened up. The average day sales outstanding ratio, which is essentially your receivables, has gone from 45 days of cash flow in the United States to 90 days in the last decade. That is a crisis for small business, right? Terrible. And super hard for small businesses to carry a quarter of their annual inventory revenue or their turnover on their own credit. So they rely on credit cards, which are extremely expensive. So we've tried to help them with companies like Lendio. Fundbox does it in an automated way where you can clear your receipts right from Intuit as soon as you send out the invoice. Those are kind of things that are moving toward helping the SMB market, and I agree with you, it's easier to target them. You can reach them through email, through Facebook, through a variety of channels and partners that make it great for an entrepreneur today.
So I know we're kind of over time, actually, what we said we would take up of your time, but I do want to finish by having you talk to us a little bit about what stage do you invest in, and you've talked a lot about the segments and the preference with B2B, but you have done some B2C as well in FinTech. But talk to us about stage as a concluding segment.
Sure. First, thanks for this great opportunity. You do a great service to entrepreneurs, really great service to the world, and I hope a lot of politicians are listening to you.
I wouldn't count on that.
I hear you. At Blumberg Capital, we believe that there are many brilliant entrepreneurs all over the world, and we're open. We're based in Silicon Valley, but we have an office in New York, we have an office in Tel Aviv, and we've invested in companies all over the world. We're open to you wherever you come from. We can help you most in Silicon Valley with the networking and the ties here, so of course that's our strength, but that's probably something, if you're going for a global market, that's important to you anyway. Now, what we invest in is early stage. Seed and A is our specialty. A few $100,000 up to $5 million on our first check. That's our average would be $1 to $3 million. And we like to follow on with our investments. We are very active investors. We jump in. We'd like to go on the board of directors. We're particularly good, I think, at business development, helping you find leads, channel partners, helping you with recruiting, and especially helping you raise the next round. Because we know a lot of the big, famous, larger firms in Silicon Valley that do Series A, B, and C, and we bring you to them kind of with white gloves. So the idea is to help the entrepreneur. And one last thing, we like to say that instead of the entrepreneur as the puppet and the VC as the marionette master, which is other people's metaphor, our metaphor is you, Mr. or Miss Entrepreneur, you drive the race car, you drive the Ferrari, we're your pit crew. We're here to change the tires, fill the gas, get fans into the stands, root for you, cheer for you, and because we've driven this track 16 times, we'll give you some advice on how not to crash around the corner. Go for it.
When you are doing these B2B investments, especially seed investments or very early Series A investment, what kind of MRR or ARR are you looking for to see evidence that there is potentially something there?
The best explanation is an example. I'll give two. Our best two investments so far have been Nutanix, which according to the Wall Street Journal may be going public this month, right down by you in San Jose. 3 brilliant engineers came to us with 0 product, 0 customers, just a great idea. We backed them because they were brilliant. They had a huge problem to solve. They showed us a clear technological path to do so. They were perseverant, driven, and today they're a world beater in hyper-converged infrastructure. Second one was a company called Hootsuite from Canada. And I met Ryan, the founder, at a conference in New York. It was the first Twitter conference ever held. And I saw that Twitter had been such a success. I thought, oh, other infrastructure companies around that will probably do well. And I particularly liked the B2B angle. Now, he had 125,000 users, but they were not paying anything. It was all free. So we talked about the freemium model and moving people up and to the right in terms of give them more modules of value, charge them higher levels, start with SMBs, and then move into the large enterprises. It's, of course, exactly what they've done. They're now, again, a world beater in social media management. They have millions and millions of free users still, but, of course, all the revenue comes from SMBs and especially now large enterprises. So it's a great example. These are companies that had zero revenue. One had zero traction. One had significant traction but no revenue. Both of those equations are okay. And then I gave you the last example of EarnUp, which had about an MRR of, I think it was about 40,000 for the year. Sorry, 35,000 a month. And we thought that was great, especially that they'd taken no capital prior. So we're not so fixated on traction. It's easier to sell us if you have traction, of course, but if you don't have traction, we want to see evidence that somebody is going to buy. In the B2B area, it's easier to prove because we have a CIO council. We'll vet you with those people. We'll say to them, if our entrepreneur builds this, would you buy it? And that is a good enough answer for us if the answer is yes.
We have done the Nutanix case study, folks, so I would strongly encourage you to look up that case study. It's a great story and definitely worth learning about. We have covered Hootsuite extensively, but we haven't had Ryan at the Entrepreneur Journey series. So, David, I would like to actually invite Ryan to come and tell the Hootsuite story, the full story of Entrepreneur Journeys. The trend right now in the Valley is that people are looking for about an 80K MRR or $1 million ARR before they would do a Series A. I'm very pleased to hear that you're saying that you're doing real venture capital as opposed to,
Well, for example, in cybersecurity, it's impossible to have that when we first invest. Most of the companies would be too big if they already have that kind of account. We go in earlier. Now, we have an advantage. I think our Israeli office finds the most amazing cybersecurity companies because of the special link that the intelligence units have there with the entrepreneurial community. But most of them have zero revenue when we invest, and we're not afraid of that at all.
Well, and also in cybersecurity, there are a lot of repeat entrepreneurs. This is a field ripe with serial entrepreneurs who have done it before and have track records. So I think those kinds of entrepreneurs are having an easier time raising money on concepts. The first-time entrepreneurs usually do not get to raise money on concepts.
Well, we still open the door to them, and we invest in a lot of first-time entrepreneurs. I think the majority of it's not that they haven't had jobs before, but they rarely have been CEO previously. Very
good. I'm thrilled to hear all the things that you have to say, and we'll find opportunities to work together. Thanks for coming, David.
I would love to. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you. Folks, we're going to switch to the mentoring part of the conversation today. I want to set some expectations for you. This is a very safe, constructive working session. It is not Shark Tank. My job is not to insult you and entertain millions of viewers. We are here to work together and help you move forward on whatever project you're working on. And you're welcome to disagree with what I have to say or what feedback you get here. It's ultimately your business. You will be making the decisions. And, you're going to be designing your own strategy. The only thing that I would caution you on is that not all businesses can raise money, not all businesses should raise money, and raising money doesn't guarantee success. Venture capital is one of the tools in the arsenal of entrepreneurs, a very powerful tool. And if you do have the ingredients of what a venture-funded company looks like, you can build very interesting companies, successful companies, using venture capital as a tool, which is why we continue to bring you conversations with VCs and so that you can understand how they think, what they're looking for, etc. But do keep in mind that not all businesses fit the venture capital model. You do need velocity, you do need TAM, very large TAM, to qualify for VCs. And if you're not pitching today, please do ask questions. That's the best way to learn, is by engaging through questions. We'll start with Mridula Chhetri, who's going to do the presentation. Inmovidu is the company. Mridula, please unmute your line and tell us what you're working on.
Hi, good morning. This is Mridula here.
Good morning. Go for it.
So we're working in the field of online education, or edutech, so as to say. What we're trying to do here is lift and shift the brick and mortar class into the online virtual space. And just to give you a background, this concept came up about, it was my own personal pain point when my daughter was unable to attend ballet classes and had to sign up for Kathak classes instead due to the unavailability of teacher close by, and also, time constraint for me to travel on the weekends. Yeah, so moving on to the next slide. Some interesting facts that we wanted to discuss before we get started. Health and fitness clubs worldwide is an $87 billion industry. And if you look at the music and dance learning session, or music and dance learning, it's about $30 billion industry. Now, an interesting fact is that, in a typical brick and mortar class, 40 to 60% of your time is total time spent is on traveling bit. Online classes, though, typically cost us less, but we also see a 95% dropout rate for the online classes. Moving on to the next slide. So what is the problem that we're trying to address here? We'll have to go back to one slide. This is the next slide that we've come to.
Your next slide after this is this one.
All right, no problems, no problems. So, okay, so let's evaluate the problem or the entry barriers from the teacher's perspective, from the tutor perspective. What is it that we're trying to solve here? So if you look at it from a tutor perspective, in case if it's in-home class, travel hassle, limited reach to the number of students that they would be able to address is one of the problems that is faced. In case if you look at the typical brick and mortar classes, then the infrastructure setup cost, lesser earnings because they are typically occupied only during certain hours on the weekdays and only again on the weekend. So which leaves them with a lot of free hours which can be utilized and are underutilized, and hence leading to wasted hours there. Now, if you look at the online existing solution, in case if it is a pre-recorded session that the students attend, then the content creation is extremely expensive. There is a low retention rate in terms of students because it is non-interactive, there is low motivation. And again, if you look at one-on-one classes or the Skype sessions or the Google Hangout session, then it is expensive for the students, so you'll see lesser number of participation. And B, again, there is a limited outreach to the number of customers that they would be able to address. Moving on to the next slide, please. I think there is a slide missed out. I would also want to discuss about the pain points that are faced by the student, and then probably we'll come to the solution that we're trying to provide here. Now, if you look at it from a student perspective, for a typical brick and mortar class, travel is one of the biggest constraints. Second is finding the right kind of teacher is again a constraint for a student. Now, if we look at the in-home classes, it is expensive for a child, and B, you cannot assure the kind of quality of teachers there. Now, if we look into the online space, one of the, if you look at the pre-recorded session, like I just mentioned previously, the motivation is really low because there is very less interaction happening between the tutor and the student. And in case if you're looking at the one-on-one session, then it is expensive for the student to be able to pursue those classes. So what is the solution that we are trying to provide here? So we have created an online platform where anyone can take, live interactive, two-way interactive group classes for non-academic disciplines, again offered by top-notch industry experts from the comfort of their home. So making it, because it is two-way interactive, so obviously the motivation, engagement, etc. is high. And because there are, other students also participating as a part of this particular learning, so there is also collaborative learning with the peers, which is missing in a typical one-on-one session. Moving on to the next slide, please. Now let us explore and look at the market opportunity that we're talking about. Now if you look at worldwide, the TG or the target group that we're trying to address here, which are children in the age group of 8 to 14 and adults in the age group of 18 to 30, we're looking at 2 billion plus population. What also gives us confidence is the yearly gross search volumes in the sectors that we are planning to get into, which is health and fitness, music, dance, arts and craft classes, there were 500 million plus searches made annually for that particular domain only. And our intention, our endeavor is to address, or our endeavor, we're trying to capture 2% of the total available, total serviceable available market by the year 2021, which is 10 million plus users should have taken classes through our particular platform. Moving on to the next slide, please. What further gives us confidence, if you look back there in the US, we have Take Lessons through which 1.6 million plus classes have been taught till date. And back here in my country, in Bangalore, we have Urban Pro, which has about 40,000 plus instructors for these classes that I'm talking about listed with them.
So, Mridula, have you studied the monetization of these two companies that you're citing as validation points?
Right.
How much money are they making?
Sure. So if you look at Take Lesson, they typically charge, so Take Lesson again is a one-on-one model. You can either have the tutor come down to your place, or you can go down to the tutor's place to take those classes, or you can take classes online. So it is a one-on-one model, and typically the classes cost between from $30 to $60 for a 30-minute session. Now, if you look at an Urban Pro, so it is more of a listing.
No, hold on. How much money does Take Lessons make? What is their conversion rate? How much money? Do you know what revenue level they're at? What are the vital statistics of this business?
To be very honest, I have not done that calculation. But if
so you cannot say that these are your market validation points if you don't know this point, right? Because I'll tell you the reason I'm probing this is that there is a lot of online education going on right now, and people are having a very hard time monetizing. So people are willing to do stuff for free, but when it comes to paying for stuff, people don't want to pay. And you can't build a business on that premise. So I'd like to see what evidence do you have that people are actually paying for these classes and paying in sizable numbers. Sure. And then I would like to know. You are talking about all kinds of different age groups. You're talking about different categories: health and fitness, music, dance, arts and crafts. There are all kinds of things that you're talking about. Where are people actually willing to pay? And what evidence do we have that there are? So right now, this presentation to me seems very generic and very kind of broad. What I would like to see is a much more precise analysis of where is the opportunity for monetization, what segment, what class of two-way education, two-way classes is where there is a group of customers who are willing to pay predictably, reliably, and help you build a business.
Sure.
So you can keep going.
Yep, I'll come back to you with those details. And if we talk about our particular business model, we have launched our MVP. We launched our first MVP in June this year, and we had 4 paying customers. They were people who were known to us. So we did not, that particular MVP was launched to evaluate the product. So would you want me to move on to the subsequent slides, and probably then I can explain it?
Sure. Do you want me to move the slide, or are you going to do the business model slide now?
Yeah, I'm just going to explain the business model. So we work on a revenue sharing model, wherein the teacher gets to keep 60% of the total ticket that is billed to the student, and we keep 40% of the revenue for managing the services, etc. Because we are a managed marketplace. We're not a listing website. We are a managed marketplace, wherein we're responsible for listing the teacher's product, to advertising it, to promoting it, and to acquire customers, and then also managing those classes, etc. on teachers' behalf. And like I said, our average ticket size is $40, and we get to keep $16 of the total ticket size. So we're looking at, reaching $160 million by the year 2021. Like I said, mentioned previously in my previous slide, that we're looking at 10 million users to be using or taking classes through our particular platform.
It's a very aggressive number. 10 million paying users paying $40 is a very, very aggressive number.
Yeah, it is.
And I just don't see the analysis behind it. It's just kind of like what I see in the presentation is a wish. I don't see a strategy. And I'd like to see, what I would like you to do is build a much more granular strategy that gets you to fulfill that wish.
Sure.
What else do you want to share?
Yeah, the next slide. Probably I can just tell you, how it works. The student logs into
I think
the
we understand how it works.
Yeah,
we understand how it works. I think the question that as I said, I think the problem you have is that it's too all over the place. This business model and this business plan that you're presenting is too all over the place. I'd like to know the answers to the questions that I asked you, and you can go through your go-to-market strategy, but your go-to-market strategy right now is too all over the place just because you're trying to go after all these different segments, and that's not going to fly. You're going to need to decide on which segment should you be going after and why you should be going after that segment. What are the monetization prospects of that segment?
Sure, I'll come back to you with those numbers as well. I've made a note of those points, but there are two segments that we're planning to address at this point in time. One is our health and fitness sector. The next sector is music, and that also we're planning to just focus on guitars.
Okay.
Search volumes
And do you have any evidence at all that people are willing to pay for these two?
We have people who have paid for these classes, and these are people not know. When we listed our particular ad through Facebook, we had a lot of queries coming in. We have 4 paying customers for guitar classes. We have not yet launched our health and fitness category because we're still in the testing stage. But already 30 people who have shown interest, and 10 saying that the minute you launch the class, we will pay for it. And as another MVP, we just wanted to see how people receive the product. We opened a class of painting classes. We opened it for a free demo session for a batch of 10. Day 2, we had 80 inquiries, and we had, instead of 1 batch, host 8 batches of painting. We had to host 4 classes for guitar. We're getting queries for cooking classes. Queries for multiple things. So
but you can't go after that many categories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, and that's the reason why we said, based on the number that we have from the Google Analytics, again, the 2 categories that we definitely want to go after, and if I have to put it in order of priority, I will go after health and fitness first, and then the guitar classes as my second priority. And that's what we want to get our product market fit by the end of year 1, and see how the consumers and the customers perceive the product to be, how is it that we can improve, how is it that we can make the learning immersive, and then go after the other categories, which could be our, the dance category or other categories that we want to launch.
Okay, so
but I see a huge yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
So I mean, just to give you a heads up, we had our first paying customer from Lagos, Nigeria also. So we have people from remote places in India who are attending our sessions. There are people who have given us incredible feedback, saying that they were not able to do these classes in the past, and they've also given us feedback that A, because it is a group session, so hence they enjoy it more. It is more affordable, and B, because it is 2-way interactive, they are motivated to attend these classes, which they were not doing previously. So in terms of the health and fitness category, I know for a fact the opportunity is huge. We're also talking to a few corporate organizations, and they said, it is a good idea, and they would want to promote this to their employees also. And that's why I said, we're still working on the health and fitness category, because we don't launch the product. It's not that somebody comes and tells us that, hey, I want to launch this category. No, we do a lot of testing. It takes us about 3 to 4 months to launch a particular category. That's the kind of testing we do, because we don't want to spoil the experience for the student, right? So, I mean, 2 things that I can say with conviction that there is a lot of demand for. One is your health and fitness category, and other is your music category. Cooking is another thing that came up as a surprise. And what we did not consider as a TG, I mean, like housewives were people we did not think would probably want to come and pay, but it is surprising to see the number of housewives who have shown interest and want to pay for these classes and join these classes and are actually joining these classes.
All right, well, test it. I think there is no other way to do these consumer products other than testing. And then you have to also make decisions based on that. You're talking about catering to customers, in Nigeria and stuff like that. You have to, again, customer acquisition is expensive, right? So you have to decide where you're going to spend your customer acquisition money and where are you going to target. Go-to-market strategy includes a very granular customer acquisition strategy, so that does convert effectively and so forth.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to have to move to Akshay next. Is there anything else that you want to highlight specifically?
No, nothing at the moment. Probably I've made note of the key points that you've told me. I will work on them, and yep, I hope to see a better probably presentation the next time for you as well.
All right, good luck.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, Akshay, you're up next. Let me go to your presentation. Pictograph is the company. Akshay, please unmute your line and tell us what Pictograph is.
Hey, good morning. Hi, Sharmana. So this is a, okay, by the way, I work for IBM Consulting, been doing this for 5 years, and QA as a function has always been pretty underserved in the enterprise space. So me and my friend were building consumer apps last 2-3 years, all failed. But then when we decided to go the SaaS way, so then it was hard for us to find QA engineers to test our products, and the open source tools out there were very, very basic. So the problem we're trying to solve is growing startups do not have much time for QA. Devs don't have much time to test. And whether these are omni-channel products like testing on a desktop, laptop, mobile, if there's a minor bug, then it's expensive for the startup. So that is like the core problem. Next slide talks about the solution. I've been meeting QA. I've been training QA startups, and then people have been telling me that they still use the open source products, which are not really great. So we come with a simple diff tool. All it does is you give 2 URLs, and it makes a diff between these 2 URLs. It sends a nice report at the end of the analysis saying page 55 has a diff, and it highlights the diff. So an example can be Uber.com version 1, Uber.com version 2. So a QA engineer or a UI designer wants to see what changed. It'll actually give the diff. We're trying to make it in such a way that both technical and non-technical people can use it, because what we found out in startups is that a lot of marketing people own the websites and branding. So a couple of people I spoke to, they said, I want to try the product, but it's only if it's super, super less technical in nature. So the next slide, so that's the market today. Selenium, Protractor, and Sauce Labs. So Selenium and Protractor are basically the open source tools, and everybody uses that. Everybody, as in my world of everybody, is the people I've spoken to at the QA meetups. These are small startups and medium-scale companies. So there, you have to install the software. It's not in the cloud. You cannot go back and see what pages changed. And what we did is it's an automatic diff check. It does the diff for you and sends you a nice report. You can look at how the each screen revolves. And let's say if people leave, if some product manager changed something 3 months ago, you can see and make some notes, and just that knowledge is not lost. So that's
the main difference that you're highlighting here is that it's a cloud software versus a downloaded software. Is that what is different?
Correct. Yeah. So today there are very few. Yep. Right.
Okay.
So I've only spoken to 60 people so far. We just started this one couple of months ago, and out of them, there were QA engineers and designers and marketing people, and they agree that visual dips is a problem. And apparently, there are two parts of the problem. One is static page and dynamic page. So I think our bot does a good job at testing static pages. Now, the dynamic pages testing is the whole AI problem, which we have to collect a lot of data to get there, and doing it right now. So
most of the websites are dynamic, though, right?
True, that's true. And then we apparently have to collect a lot of data for us to build the AI model. And by the way, I'm not the technical brain power for this product. All the credit goes to my friend, who's actually he couldn't attend the call today. But our thought process was, once we collect, we'll obviously give it for free, right? We'll just make teams use it. Once we collect enough data, then we can train the AI model, ML model, to see if it can avoid the edge cases. Otherwise, it'll just give a diff, and it won't be a diff. It'll just be a dynamic page. That's
not as simple as you're saying. I think doing what you're talking about in a dynamic environment is not as simple as you're talking about. That's one comment I have. And the second comment I have is, please do not do freemium. You can do free trial, but if you have 60 engineers, and if these 60 engineers really have this problem and want to use this product, let them use it for 30 days for free, after which they have to pay.
I see. Yeah, we were thinking of a couple of models for monetization. One is per user, per team, but we weren't sure because each startup was giving us a different answer. So we thought, okay, let them use it, and then we'll come up with that.
Yeah. So there's not a lot in your presentation, so I'm not sure how to react to it. So I just gave you a couple of points that are my concerns based on what you said. One is, I think doing this on dynamic sites is a very different scale and order problem from a computer science point of view. And two, I don't like freemium at all. Freemium is a terrible business model.
Okay, yeah, and we're pretty basic. Just open up for feedback right now. So once we send it out and start getting users, we'll definitely get more advice. Yeah.
All right. Good luck. Folks, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how to use 1M, and then we can go to Q&A. I want to point you to this lynda.com course that we released a few months ago, in July, I think, and it's a course on bootstrapping. So by all means, take a look at it, because whatever it is that you want to do, there's going to be a lot of bootstrapping requirement. Even if you raise money, most of the VCs these days are looking for some amount of traction before they're willing to fund businesses. And that period, you're going to have to somehow navigate through bootstrapping, and that's just the reality. So you can take a look at that course if you like. And the other request I have is, if you like what we're doing here, please refer serious entrepreneurs to 1 million by 1 million, and because we are looking to work with serious entrepreneurs who want to build serious companies, not just, flip companies and move on. So everything resource-wise is at 1m1m.com. You will find a very rich blog that you can learn a lot from, free, by just following the blog. The Entrepreneur Journeys book series has 12 volumes. It's a case studies and video lectures, case studies based book. Each book has 12 to 16 case studies, and they double click down on a particular topic. So you can look at bootstrapping with a paycheck, for instance, which Akshay just mentioned, that he works for IBM and is doing this on the side. We are perfectly fine with that. We're very happy to, support entrepreneurs who are using their paycheck to do something on the side, and we have a lot of companies that are successfully doing that in the program. You can dig around on the website. There's plenty of videos, video FAQs, etc. These roundtables happen every week, so take advantage of them. You just need to go to the website and register. Then we have the premium program, which offers you extensive acceleration with methodology guidance, a full video lectures and case study-based curriculum. We help you with business development. We help you with strategy consulting. We help you also with financing and media relations. And this is our $1,000 annual membership fee 1M1M premium program. You can go to the $1 Million Club link and see success stories of the program. You can go to the quantifying the 1M1M value equation link and look at the ROI of the program. The self-assessment is something that I would like all of you to take yourself through. So Mridula, if you actually go through the self-assessment, it will ask you the kinds of questions that a really fleshed out go-to-market strategy would require. And you need to answer these questions. That's a requirement that you have to answer these questions for yourself, not for any external, yes, investor that will ask you this question, but for the moment, just ask these questions of yourself about your business and try to get to a real granular strategy. And if you're getting stuck on methodology points as you're going through the self-assessment, go to 1M1M Basic, which is our curriculum-only solution, and that's just $99 a month, and you can basically plug your methodology gaps, knowledge gaps, and just learn what you need to learn on various aspects of business strategy. That's it. There's tons of information on the website on what to expect from the various parts of the program. This is a case study-based program. We have over 700 successful entrepreneurs, including 50+ unicorn companies, 400 venture-funded companies, 300 bootstrap companies who have been part of the Entrepreneur Journey series and have continuously participated in developing these case studies, entrepreneur journeys, the videos that synthesize their journeys, etc. So you've got the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of so many successful entrepreneurs and learn from them and not have to make those mistakes yourselves. And that's what the curriculum offers, is access to these very large numbers of experienced entrepreneurs. That's it. I am happy to go to questions at this point. By the way, there are roundtables every week. This next week, all through October, there are continuous roundtables throughout the fall, and please come and sign up, and we will work on your business whenever you're ready to do that. So there are tons of resources in the program. Use whichever works for you to learn and move forward. And we're ready for Q&A, so please feel free to either dial in or use the public chat for asking questions, and I will do my best to answer. Also, feel free to introduce yourselves. And speaking of introductions, let me introduce you to Irina Patterson, who will be happy to answer any questions that you have about the program itself and help you make decisions about whether this program is right for you or not. Anybody? Questions, comments, introductions?
Hey, this is Akshay again. So just on that bootstrapping idea, so if you have a day job, how long should you bootstrap, and when do you know if it's fundable or not?
Well, you will know when you have traction. Validation and traction, these are steps, and validation comes in multiple different forms. So there is the validation that whether customers do want your product or not, and whether they verbally tell you they're going to use your product or not is one type of validation. When they actually start using your product, like in your case, you said you've talked to 60 Q&A people, and they've verbally kind of validated that you're on the right track. The next step would be to get these people to start using your product on a 30-day trial mode and see how much actual usage and how much actual value they're getting. The third level of validation is when they actually convert from free to paid users. And then you get to the next level of validation is how many of these people are validating and how many of these people are actually signing up to pay for your product. What kind of traction, what kind of velocity are you getting? So all of these are different levels of validation, and at different levels of validation, your fundability goes up. So it really is up to you to how far you can go in a bootstrap mode. The longer you can go and the more validation you can show. Let's say you can just do this on the side and get up to $80,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue, and you are showing good growth velocity and so forth that VCs would be excited about, that would be an ideal time for you to go for financing.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Maureen is actually asking a question that has been popular on Quora. What are the different stages in startup funding? Well, so this, the pre-seed, when you're working on a blank sheet, usually the financing that happens there is either incubators that work on a funding mode, or friends and family, or from your personal saving, or self-financing, bootstrapping. You did hear today David Blumberg talk about his VC firm actually being interested in doing seed financing, not pre-seed financing, but seed financing. And there you're looking for some validation. And I just talked to Akshay about the different levels of validation, so you have to kind of understand at what level of validation does your business become fundable, and we can help you do that. We have a lot of experience with all this stuff, so we can guide you through that process of, how to move through that, those different phases. Then you have to deal with these metrics like MRR, ARR in the case of SaaS businesses, and that's where Series A becomes viable. Right now, I would say Series A is very hard to raise at under 1 million ARR in case of SaaS businesses. Series B, you're going to need to start meeting revenue goals, and Series C, D, of course, is a much, much, much larger scale revenue goals. That's your progression as far as financing is concerned. Anybody else? Questions, comments, introductions?
This was very helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Akshay. And by the way, all of you who are thinking about financing need to think about bottom-up TAM analysis. Bottom-up TAM analysis is the metric that is going to drive your fundability, and then how fast can you grow. For VCs, fast growth companies is essential, absolutely. And fast growth companies are not easy to pull together. So you have to, put one foot before the other and work the strategic angles of how can you accelerate. And this is why, Mridula, I would like you to get very, very granular on how you're going to navigate your customer acquisition and growth rate and so forth, so that you can, you can have predictability in your process. Okay, folks, any other questions? Anybody else? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up for today and meet you back here next week, same time, same place, and we'll continue.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, folks. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you for coming.